The bridge of the Valthran survey ship hummed with quiet efficiency as it drifted through the emptiness of the outer veil. Commander Hyunwoo stood with his arms crossed, watching the star charts flicker across the main display. This region of space had been marked as dead for centuries. No planets worth colonizing, no resources worth mining, nothing but the cold void between distant stars. "Another waste of time," muttered one of the crew members, a scaled Valthran with tired eyes. Hyunwoo didn't disagree. The Empire had sent them out here on a routine survey mission, checking old sectors that hadn't been explored in generations. It was the kind of assignment given to crews that weren't expected to find anything important. But orders were orders, and Hyunwoo had learned long ago not to question the bureaucrats back on the capital world. Dr. Mirai sat at her station near the back of the bridge, studying ancient star charts with the intensity of someone searching for buried treasure. She was a xenoarchaeologist, someone who spent her life digging through the ruins of dead civilizations. The Empire had dozens of species in its coalition, but it had outlasted hundreds more that had risen and fallen over the millennia. "Commander, I'm picking up something unusual," called out Jiwon from the pilot station. She was young, barely 20 standard years, with sharp eyes and faster reflexes than anyone else on the crew. Hyunwoo walked over to her console. "Define unusual." "There's an energy signature about 3 light hours from here. It's faint, but it's definitely artificial. The pattern doesn't match anything in our database." Mirai was on her feet immediately. Could it be a remnant? Maybe an old station or probe from one of the extinct civilizations? "Maybe," Jiwon said, her fingers dancing across the controls. "But the signal is still active. Whatever it is, it's not completely dead." Hyunwoo felt a spark of interest despite himself. Finding active technology this far out would be noteworthy. It might even earn them a commendation instead of another forgettable entry in the survey logs. "Take us closer. Slow approach. Keep scanning." The ship adjusted course, its engines barely a whisper as it glided through the darkness. Hours passed as they drew nearer to the source of the signal. The rest of the crew went about their duties with mechanical precision, but Hyunwoo noticed Mirai couldn't sit still. She kept checking her instruments, cross-referencing data, muttering to herself. "You think it's something big?" Hyunwoo asked her quietly. "I think we're looking at something that shouldn't exist," she replied, not taking her eyes off her screen. "The energy signature has harmonics I've only seen in one other place. Ancient human technology from before the Great Silence." Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his spine. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew that. Earth had gone dark 2,000 years ago, and every human colony had fallen silent within a generation. The species had simply vanished from the galaxy, leaving behind ruins and mysteries that archaeologists like Mirai spent their careers studying. "That's impossible," Hyunwoo said. "I know," Mirai replied. "That's what makes it interesting." As they approached the coordinates, Jiwon suddenly tensed at her controls. "Commander, there's something here. A spatial anomaly. It's like a fold in space, but it's perfectly stable, and it's definitely artificial." On the main display, the sensors painted a picture of something that shouldn't exist. A bubble of distorted space nearly invisible to conventional scans sitting in the middle of nowhere. It was enormous, easily large enough to hide a solar system. "Can we get through it?" Hyunwoo asked. "I think so," Jiwon said slowly. "But I'd need to take us in manually. The autopilot won't handle this kind of navigation." Hyunwoo should have reported back to the fleet. He should have called in specialists and waited for orders. But something in his gut told him that if they left now, this opportunity would slip away. The bureaucrats would send a military fleet, and whatever was inside that anomaly would be classified and buried under layers of imperial security. "Do it," he ordered. Jiwon's hands moved with practiced confidence as she guided the ship forward. The hull creaked and groaned as they passed through the spatial fold. For a moment, every instrument went haywire and the lights flickered. Then everything stabilized, and they were through. What they saw made everyone on the bridge fall silent. A star system spread out before them, alive with activity. 12 planets orbited a yellow sun, and every single one of them showed signs of terraforming. Space stations dotted the orbital paths. Ships moved between the worlds with purpose and coordination. Energy readings flooded their sensors, showing a civilization that was not just surviving but thriving. "This can't be real," someone whispered. Mireille was frantically scanning everything she could, her hands shaking. "The architecture, the ship designs, the energy signatures, it's all human. This is a human civilization." "That's impossible," Hyunwoo repeated, but even as he said it, he knew he was looking at the proof. Before anyone could say anything else, their communications console lit up. Someone was hailing them. The message came through in multiple languages, starting with ancient Earth dialects that hadn't been spoken in centuries, then shifting to modern galactic standard. "Attention, unknown vessel. You have entered the sovereign space of the Remnant Coalition. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. We mean you no harm, but we will defend our worlds if necessary." Hyunwoo's mouth had gone dry. He stepped forward to the communications station, unsure what to say. "How do you introduce yourself? To a species everyone thought was dead? This is Commander Hyunwoo of the Valthran Empire survey vessel Horizon's Edge. We came here on a routine exploration mission. We didn't know anyone lived here. We thought humans were extinct." There was a long pause. Then a new voice came through, older and weighted with authority. "Extinct? No, Commander. We're very much alive. We've been here for 2,000 years waiting and watching. My name is Chancellor Doyon. On behalf of the Remnant, I welcome you. We have much to discuss, Commander. The galaxy has forgotten us, but we have not forgotten the galaxy. And there are things you need to know, things your empire needs to know before it's too late." Hyunwoo looked around his bridge at the shocked faces of his crew. Everything they thought they knew about history had just been turned upside down. Humans weren't extinct. They had been here all along, hidden behind a wall of impossible technology, surviving in isolation while the rest of the galaxy moved on without them. "Permission to approach your worlds, Chancellor," Hyunwoo said, knowing that his simple survey mission had just become something far more significant. "We would be honored to speak with you." "Permission granted, Commander. Welcome to New Haven. Let us hope this meeting marks the beginning of understanding, rather than the renewal of old conflicts." As their ship turned toward the nearest planet, Hyunwoo couldn't shake the feeling that they had just stumbled onto something that would change the galaxy forever. The landing on New Haven felt surreal to Hyunwoo. As their shuttle descended through the atmosphere, he watched cities spread across the continents below, connected by transportation networks that glowed in the fading daylight. Everything looked clean and organized, a civilization that had clearly spent centuries perfecting its infrastructure. This wasn't some struggling colony barely clinging to survival. This was a mature society that had found its rhythm. The shuttle touched down on a landing pad near what appeared to be a government complex. Buildings of glass and steel rose around them, mixing old Earth architectural styles with newer, more efficient designs. Hyunwoo noticed wind turbines and solar arrays everywhere, integrated seamlessly into the urban landscape. These people had clearly learned to live within their means. Chancellor Doyon was waiting for them at the base of the landing pad. He was a man in his 60s with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. He wore simple clothes, nothing fancy or ceremonial, just practical garments suited for work. Beside him stood Admiral Nari, a woman with sharp features and the bearing of someone who had spent her life in military service. Her uniform was crisp and functional, with medals that spoke of long service. "Commander Hyunwoo," Doyon said, extending his hand in the ancient human gesture of greeting. "Thank you for coming. I know this must all be quite shocking for you." Hyunwoo shook his hand, feeling the firm grip of someone who still did physical labor despite his age. "Shocking doesn't begin to cover it, Chancellor. The entire galaxy believes your species died out 2,000 years ago." "Yes, we know," Doyon said with a sad smile. "We've been monitoring galactic communications for the past 2 centuries. We know what the galaxy thinks happened to us. The truth is more complicated. They were led into the government complex, through halls filled with people going about their daily business. Humans of all ages passed by, some glancing curiously at the alien visitors, others too busy to notice. It all felt so normal, so alive. Mirai kept looking around with wide eyes, drinking in every detail like someone dying of thirst. They entered a conference room with windows overlooking the city. A young man was already there, arranging data tablets and display screens. Doyun introduced him as Taeyang, a historian who specialized in pre-silence galactic history. "Before we begin," Admiral Nari said, her voice cool and measured, "I need to make something clear. We're sharing this information as a gesture of goodwill, but we will defend our sovereignty. We didn't survive 2,000 years in hiding just to be absorbed into someone else's empire." Hyunwoo nodded. "Understood, Admiral. We're here to learn, not to conquer." Doyun gestured for everyone to sit. "Then let me tell you what really happened during the Great Silence. The history your empire knows is incomplete at best, deliberately obscured at worst." Taeyang activated a holographic display. Images filled the air above the table, showing ancient Earth and its colonies spread across dozens of star systems. Before the silence, humanity had grown to a population of nearly 40 billion across 83 worlds. We weren't as advanced as the Valthran Empire is now, but we were getting there. We had achieved faster than light travel, terraforming technology and artificial intelligence. Then something attacked us. Doyun continued, his voice heavy. "We don't know where they came from or what they wanted. We called them the Devourers because that's what they did. They consumed energy in all its forms. They attacked our ships, our stations, our worlds. Conventional weapons didn't work. Energy weapons just made them stronger. The holographic images showed battles. Human ships exploding in silence, space stations going dark. Entire planets falling to darkness as the orbital infrastructure collapsed. It was systematic destruction on a scale that made Hyunwoo's stomach turn. Earth fought for 3 years, Taeyang said quietly. Every other major colony fell within months. In the end, a coalition of our remaining military forces and civilian volunteers gathered everyone they could and ran. They used experimental jump technology, something that had barely left the testing phase, to make one desperate leap into the unknown. They ended up here, Admiral Nari said. 347 ships carrying 9 million people. Out of 40 billion, that's all that survived. Mirai leaned forward, her scientific mind working through the implications. But why didn't you ever reach out? In 2,000 years you could have rebuilt, contacted the other species, told them what happened. Doyun's expression darkened. We tried. About 500 years after we arrived here, we sent out scout ships to see what had happened to the galaxy. What we found was that every human world had been picked clean. But not by the Devourers, by other species. Your Empire, Chancellor, and others like it. They found our empty worlds and took everything. Our technology, our resources, our history. They divided it up like spoils of war. Taeyang brought up more images, showing Valthran salvage operations on human colony worlds, stripping them of anything valuable. We watched your species and others build their empires on the graves of ours. We saw how quickly the galaxy forgot us, how easily we became just another extinct civilization to be studied and exploited. So we stayed hidden, Admiral Nari said. We built our lives here behind our shield and we watched. We learned from what happened to us. We became experts at survival, at efficiency, at making every resource count. We had 9 million people and 12 barely habitable worlds. Now we have 8 billion people and 12 thriving planets. We did that ourselves without the galaxy's help. Hyunwoo felt a mixture of shame and awe. The Empire had built itself partially on human ruins and no one had thought twice about it. Extinct species left behind salvage, nothing more. But these people weren't extinct. They had endured, adapted, and built something remarkable. I understand your anger, Hyunwoo said carefully, and I'm sorry for what my empire did. But why tell us this now? Why reveal yourselves after 2,000 years? Doyun and Nari exchanged a look. The Chancellor stood and walked to the window, looking out over his city. Because the Devourers are coming back, Commander. We've detected them. They're not extinct either. They've been dormant, sleeping in the galactic core, and now they're waking up. The room went cold. Hyunwoo felt ice run through his veins. How do you know? Because we've spent 2,000 years studying them, Admiral Nari said. We've sent probes into deep space monitoring the region where they vanished. We've recovered Devourer technology from the battlefield sites. We've made it our mission to understand them, because we knew one day we might face them again. Taeyang pulled up new data, showing energy patterns detected in the galactic core. 3 years ago, we started picking up signatures that match Devourer activity. They're stirring, Commander. And we think we know why. The Valthran Empire has been building massive energy networks, Megastructures that generate power on unprecedented scales. You're ringing the dinner bell. Mireille looked at the data with growing horror. This is real. The signatures match extinct civilization patterns we've found in archaeological sites. We thought they were natural phenomena or ancient weapons tests. But they're not. They're attack patterns. Hyunwoo stood, his mind racing. The Empire needs to know about this. We need to prepare. We're willing to help, Doyen said. We'll share what we know about the Devourers, our defensive technology, our strategies. But we need something in return. Recognition, sovereignty, a guarantee that humanity will never be forgotten or exploited again. Admiral Nari stepped closer to Hyunwoo. We're not asking to join your empire, Commander. We're asking to stand beside it as equals. We've earned that right through 2,000 years of survival. The question is whether your empire can set aside its pride long enough to accept help from a species it thought was dead. Hyunwoo looked at each of them, seeing the determination in their eyes. These people had survived the impossible. They had rebuilt from ashes and turned themselves into something stronger. And now they were offering to share that strength with a galaxy that had abandoned them. I'll take your message to the Empire, Hyunwoo said. I can't promise how they'll react, but I'll make sure they understand the threat and your offer. That's all we ask, Doyen said. For now. The next morning, Admiral Nari took them to a research facility built into the mountains outside the capital. The drive gave Hyunwoo time to observe more of New Haven. The cities were dense but green, with parks and gardens woven throughout. The people looked healthy and purposeful. This was a society that worked, where everyone understood their role and took pride in it. The facility was massive, carved into the mountain itself, with level after level descending deep underground. Security was tight but professional. The guards were well-trained and alert without being hostile. Everything about this place spoke of serious military preparation. Dr. Somin met them in the main laboratory. She was a woman in her 40s with intense eyes and hands stained with chemical residue. Around her, dozens of scientists worked at stations filled with equipment that looked both familiar and alien. Hyunwoo recognized some Valthran technology, but it had been modified, improved, integrated with human innovations. Welcome to Project Sentinel, Somin said without preamble. This is where we've spent the last 300 years trying to understand our enemy. She led them to a secure chamber in the center of the facility. Inside a containment field floated a piece of dark material that seemed to absorb light. It moved slowly like a living thing, pulsing with its own rhythm. This is Devourer matter, Somin explained. We recovered it from a battlefield site 600 years ago. It's not biological in the traditional sense, and it's not purely mechanical either. It exists somewhere in between, a form of adaptive technology we still don't fully understand. Mireille approached the containment field cautiously. It's beautiful in a terrifying way. It feeds on energy, Somin continued. All forms of it. Heat, electricity, radiation, kinetic force. When you shoot it with an energy weapon, it absorbs the blast and grows stronger. When you ram it with a ship, it converts the kinetic energy into more matter. Traditional warfare doesn't work. Then how do you fight it? Hyunwoo asked. Somin smiled grimly. Very carefully. We've developed weapons that use principles the Devourers can't easily absorb. Electromagnetic pulse weapons that disrupt their structure faster than they can adapt. Kinetic weapons moving at relativistic speeds that cause damage before they can feed. Chemical weapons that break down their molecular bonds. And most importantly, tactical doctrine that avoids direct confrontation whenever possible. She pulled up tactical displays showing battle simulations. The Devourers are strong, but they're not invincible. They adapt slowly to new threats. They can be outmaneuvered by fast, coordinated attacks. They can be trapped and contained if you know how. We've spent centuries learning how to fight them, Commander. Your empire hasn't. Jihoon, Admiral Nari's second-in-command, entered the chamber. He was a lean man with scars on his hands and the calm confidence of someone who had seen real combat. We'd like to demonstrate our capabilities, Commander. With your permission, Admiral Nari has arranged a naval exercise. An hour later, Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of a remnant warship in orbit above New Haven. The ship was smaller than a Valthran destroyer, but felt more agile, more responsive. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, and every system seemed designed for maximum effectiveness with minimum waste. We'll run a standard engagement scenario, Admiral Nari explained. 3 of our frigates against 2 of your destroyer-class ships in simulation mode. No one gets hurt, but the computers will track hits and damage. Hyunwoo had seen enough war games to know how they usually went. Larger ships with more firepower typically dominated, but as the exercise began, he quickly realized the Remnant didn't fight like any opponent he'd encountered before. The Remnant ships moved in perfect coordination, using the planet's gravity well to slingshot around obstacles. They fired in short, precise bursts, then immediately changed position. They used electronic countermeasures that confused targeting systems. They exploited every weakness in the Valthran ship's designs, weaknesses Hyunwoo hadn't even known existed. Within 10 minutes, both Valthran ships registered as destroyed. The Remnant frigates were damaged but still combat-capable. How? Hyunwoo asked, stunned. Jihoon pulled up the tactical replay. Your ships are powerful, but they're designed for overwhelming force. Big guns, heavy armor, predictable tactics. You've been the dominant power for so long that you've forgotten how to fight smart. We've had to fight smart our entire existence. Every resource matters. Every life matters. We can't afford waste. Admiral Nari turned to Hyunwoo. We're not trying to humiliate you, Commander. We're trying to make you understand. When the Devourers come, your Empire's current military doctrine will get millions killed. You need to learn new ways of fighting, and you need to learn them fast. Back on the surface, Chancellor Doyen gathered them in his office. The sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. It would have been peaceful if not for the weight of what they had learned. We've been monitoring the Devourers' awakening closely, Doyen said, pulling up star charts. Based on their movement patterns and energy consumption rates, we estimate they'll reach the Empire's outer colonies within 5 years. Maybe less if they encounter major energy sources that accelerate their growth. Taiyang added more data to the display. We've identified likely targets based on your Empire's energy infrastructure. Your megaforges, your planetary shields, your faster-than-light communication networks, all of it generates massive energy signatures that will draw them like moths to flame. We need to tell the Empire immediately, Hyunwoo said. They need time to prepare. We agree, Doyen said. That's why we revealed ourselves to you. We're offering an alliance, Commander. We'll share our technology, our tactical knowledge, our experience fighting the Devourers. In exchange, we need the Empire to recognize our sovereignty and work with us as equals. Some in your Empire won't like that. Admiral Nari said bluntly. They'll see our technology and want to take it. They'll see our worlds and want to claim them. They'll see humans as a resource to exploit, just like they did 2,000 years ago. Hyunwoo couldn't deny it. The Empire had factions that would see the Remnant exactly that way. Military hardliners who wanted every advantage. Corporate interests that wanted access to new markets and technologies. Politicians who would see human worlds as expansion opportunities. I'll speak for you, Hyunwoo said. I'll make them understand the threat and the value of alliance over conquest. But I can't guarantee how the ruling council will respond. Doyen studied him for a long moment. I believe you'll try, Commander. That's why we chose to reveal ourselves to your ship, rather than making a grand announcement. We wanted to establish contact with reasonable people first, people who might see us as something other than a threat or resource. What if the Empire tries to take your technology by force? Mirai asked quietly. Admiral Nari's expression hardened. Then they'll discover that we've had 2,000 years to prepare our defenses. We didn't survive this long by being easy targets. We'd rather have the Empire as an ally. But we'll settle for being left alone, and if necessary, we'll fight for that right. Hyunwoo looked at the determination in their eyes and knew they meant every word. These people had rebuilt their entire civilization from near extinction. They had spent centuries preparing for threats both known and unknown. They wouldn't surrender their freedom to anyone. Give me your data, Hyunwoo said. Everything you have on the Devourers, your tactical analysis, your predictive models. I'll take it to the ruling council myself. I'll make them understand. We'll prepare a diplomatic package, Doyen said. But Commander, you need to hurry. The Devourers are coming, and every day we delay is another day the Empire isn't preparing. The galaxy forgot what happened to humanity 2,000 years ago. If we don't act now, history will repeat itself on an even larger scale. As Hyunwoo prepared to return to his ship, he looked back at the city of New Haven one last time. Somewhere down there, 8 billion people were living their lives unaware that their secret was about to be revealed to the galaxy. They had survived in the shadows for so long. Now they were stepping into the light, offering their strength to a galaxy that had abandoned them. He just hoped the galaxy was wise enough to accept. The threshold was a region of space where several major hyperspace routes converged, making it a natural choke point between the galactic rim and the core. If the Devourers could be stopped anywhere, it would be here. Chancellor Doyen stood on the bridge of the combined fleet's command ship, watching as hundreds of vessels took up defensive positions. The fleet was a strange mix of Valthran power and remnant innovation. Massive Imperial battleships hung in formation alongside sleek remnant frigates. Engineers from both civilizations worked together, retrofitting Empire weapons with remnant targeting systems and defensive technologies. It was chaos and coordination in equal measure. Admiral Nari moved through the bridge with quiet confidence, directing the remnant forces while coordinating with Imperial fleet commanders. Beside her, Ji-hoon managed tactical displays showing the Devourer advance. 3 more colonies had fallen silent in the past week. The enemy was accelerating, feeding on each conquest, growing stronger. "How much time do we have?" High Arbiter Yuna asked. She had come personally, unwilling to direct the battle from the safety of the capital. If the Empire was going to make a stand, its leader would stand with her people. "Their vanguard should reach us within 12 hours, Ji-hoon reported. "Based on their pattern, they'll send scouts first to probe our defenses. The main force will follow once they understand what they're facing." Dr. Somin was coordinating with Empire scientists in the engineering decks below, preparing the specialized weapons her team had spent centuries developing. Electromagnetic pulse mines floated in carefully calculated patterns throughout the threshold. Kinetic railguns mounted on defensive platforms were calibrated to fire at relativistic speeds. Chemical dispersion systems stood ready to flood attack corridors with compounds designed to break down Devourer matter. Hyunwoo commanded a mixed squadron of Remnant and Empire ships, positioned at a critical point in the defensive line. His crew was a blend of both civilizations now, working together with surprising efficiency. Ji-won piloted their lead frigate with Taeyang as her tactical officer, combining her instincts with his knowledge of historical Devourer attack patterns. "This is where we make our stand," Doyen said quietly to Yuna as they waited. 2,000 years ago, my ancestors fled because they weren't prepared. Today we're ready." Yuna studied the human chancellor with new respect. "Why help us? Your people owed the Empire nothing. You could have stayed hidden and let us face this alone." "Because that's not who we are," Doyen replied. "We're human. We endure, we adapt, and we help those who need it, even when it's hard, even when it costs us. That's what makes us human, not our technology or our survival. Our choice to stand when we could run." The first Devourer scouts arrived exactly on schedule, emerging from hyperspace like shadows given form. They were ship-sized masses of dark matter that absorbed light and radiated wrongness. Sensors struggled to track them as they moved through space with unnatural grace. "Hold fire," Admiral Nari commanded. "Let them come closer. We need them in the kill zone." The Devourers approached cautiously, clearly sensing the trap but unable to resist the massive energy signatures the fleet generated. They moved into the minefield between the defensive platforms, straight into the prepared positions. "Now," Nari ordered. The EMP mines detonated in carefully sequenced waves, disrupting the Devourer's molecular structure. Before they could adapt, railguns fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds, punching through weakened matter. Chemical dispersal systems released clouds of reactive compounds that ate away at Devourer material faster than it could regenerate. The scouts died within minutes, unable to feed fast enough to compensate for the coordinated assault. But their death sent information back to the main force. The Devourers were learning. "Here they come," Ji-hoon announced grimly. The main Devourer force emerged from hyperspace like a wall of darkness. Hundreds of them, each larger than the scouts, moving with coordinated purpose. They had learned from the scouts' deaths and adjusted their approach, spreading out to minimize concentrated damage. "All ships, execute pattern Delta," Admiral Nari commanded. "Stay mobile, keep them guessing. Don't let them adapt to any single tactic." The battle began in earnest. The combined fleet moved in coordinated waves, never staying in one place long enough for the Devourers to target them effectively. Remnant ships darted in and out, using hit-and-run tactics to keep the enemy off balance. Imperial battleships provided heavy firepower, their massive guns punching holes through Devourer formations that the smaller ships could exploit. Hyunwoo's squadron engaged a group of Devourers trying to flank the main defensive line. "Ji-won, get us in close. Taeyang target their central mass with the EMP cannon. Jiwan's hands flew across the controls, the ship weaving through space in patterns that should have been impossible. Taeyang fired at precisely calculated moments, each shot disrupting Devourer matter just long enough for the kinetic weapons to strike true. One Devourer exploded in a flash of energy that the others tried to absorb, but Hyunwoo had expected that. Chemical dispersal now. The reactive compounds flooded the area, preventing the Devourers from feeding on their fallen comrades' energy. It was exactly the kind of innovative tactic the Remnant had taught them. Deny the enemy their advantages. Force them to fight on your terms. But the Devourers were learning too. They began targeting the Empire's larger ships, recognizing them as less mobile and easier to overwhelm. 3 Imperial destroyers fell to concentrated Devourer assault, their shields collapsing as the enemy drained them dry. We need to adapt, Soman called from engineering. They're figuring out our patterns. Prepare contingency weapons. She activated systems that had never been tested in actual combat. Gravity well generators that created localized distortions, trapping Devourers in pockets of compressed space. Quantum disruptors that unraveled their molecular bonds at a subatomic level. Desperate weapons for a desperate battle. The threshold became a storm of fire and darkness. Ships exploded. Devourers disintegrated. The void filled with debris and energy. Both sides adapted and counter-adapted in a deadly dance of evolution and innovation. Their main command cluster is holding back, Taeyang noticed, studying the tactical display. 3 massive Devourers at the rear of their formation. They're coordinating the others. Doyen saw the opportunity immediately. If we take out their command structure, the rest will lose cohesion. But it means pushing through their entire force. Then that's what we do, Yuna said without hesitation. Admiral Nari, prepare a spearhead formation. We're going straight through. The boldest ships formed up around the command vessel. Remnant frigates providing speed and maneuverability. Imperial battleships providing firepower and protection. They charged into the heart of the Devourer formation like a spear thrust into a shield wall. The enemy responded with savage intensity. Ships fell on both sides. The void burned with released energy, but the spearhead pushed forward, driven by determination and desperation in equal measure. Hyunwoo's ship took heavy damage. Its hull breached in 3 places. But Ji-won kept them flying, compensating for damaged systems with pure skill. They pressed forward with the rest of the spearhead refusing to fall back. Finally, they reached the command cluster. The 3 massive Devourers were unlike anything they had encountered before. Ancient and powerful, radiating intelligence and malevolence. All weapons, concentrated fire, Doyen commanded. Everything we have. The combined fleet unleashed everything simultaneously. EMP weapons, kinetic railguns, chemical dispersers, gravity wells, quantum disruptors. Every weapon, every tactic, every innovation humans and Valthran had developed, all focused on 3 targets. The first command Devourer collapsed under the assault, unable to adapt fast enough. The second began to fragment but attempted to feed on the energy being released. Soman activated a trap she had prepared specifically for this, a containment field that captured the released energy and redirected it back as purified radiation that burned rather than fed. The third command, Devourer, tried to flee, but Admiral Nari had predicted this. Remnant ships had positioned themselves along every escape vector. It died trying to break through their coordinated fire. With their command structure destroyed, the remaining Devourers lost cohesion. They began fighting independently, falling into patterns the combined fleet had learned to counter. One by one, they were destroyed or driven back into hyperspace, fleeing deeper into the galaxy. The battle was over. The threshold held. But the cost had been terrible. 40% of the combined fleet was destroyed or too damaged to continue fighting. Thousands had died. Entire ships had been consumed, leaving no trace they had ever existed. On the bridge of the command ship, Doyen and Yuna stood together, looking at the casualty reports in silence. Finally, Yuna spoke. Your people saved us. Without the Remnant's knowledge and tactics, we would have fallen. Our people saved each other. Doyen corrected gently. Remnant innovation and Imperial strength together. Neither could have won alone. In the days that followed, the Empire formally recognized the Remnant as a sovereign nation with full diplomatic standing. Treaties were signed, trade agreements established, cultural exchanges planned. The galaxy began learning the true history of humanity's fall and survival. The capital world of the Voltran Empire was a monument to power and prosperity. Massive towers reached toward the sky, connected by transportation tubes that moved millions of people every day. 3 different species' architectural styles blended together in a statement of unified civilization. It was beautiful and intimidating in equal measure. Hyunwoo stood before the ruling council in the Grand Chamber, a circular room where holographic representatives of the Empire's leadership materialized around him. At the center sat High Arbiter Yuna, a veteran of the frontier wars with scars visible even through her formal robes. Her eyes were sharp and calculating, missing nothing. "Let me understand this correctly," Yuna said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You're telling us that humans, a species extinct for 2 millennia, have been hiding in a secret star system this entire time? And now they're warning us about an ancient enemy that supposedly destroyed their civilization?" "Yes, High Arbiter," Hyunwoo said firmly. "I've seen their worlds. I've met their leaders. I've reviewed their evidence. Everything checks out." One of the council members, a merchant lord named Kesh, laughed dismissively. "This sounds like a fairy tale designed to make us lower our guard. How convenient that these humans suddenly appear with warnings of ancient enemies just when we discover them." "I've verified the data independently," Mirai interjected, stepping forward. "The archaeological evidence supports their account. We found similar destruction patterns at dozens of extinct civilization sites across the galaxy. We just never connected them because we didn't know what we were looking at." Another council member leaned forward. "Even if we believe they're human, why should we trust them? They've been spying on us for 200 years by their own admission. That's hostile intelligence gathering. Or survival," Hyunwoo countered. "They wanted to know if the galaxy was safe before revealing themselves. Given what happened to them, can you blame them?" High Arbiter Yuna raised her hand for silence. "The question isn't whether we trust them. The question is whether we can afford to ignore their warning." "Commander, you say they have evidence of this enemy reawakening?" "Yes, High Arbiter. Energy signatures detected in the galactic core. Movement patterns consistent with their historical records. Predictive models showing likely expansion vectors. They've provided everything for independent verification." "Then we'll verify it," Yuna said decisively. "I'm ordering 3 deep space reconnaissance missions to the coordinates they provided. We'll know within a month if their claims have merit." "That might be too late," Hyunwoo pressed. "The Remnant believes we have 5 years at most before the Devourers reach our outer colonies. We need to start preparing now." "We will prepare," Yuna said coldly, "but we'll do so on our terms, not because some long-lost humans tell us to panic." "Dismissed, Commander." Hyunwoo left the chamber frustrated. The bureaucracy was moving too slowly, bogged down by politics and pride. He returned to his quarters and found a message waiting from Chancellor Doyen. The Remnant was sending a formal diplomatic delegation to the Empire, led by Ambassador Yunji. When the Remnant ship arrived 2 weeks later, it caused a sensation. News of humanity's survival had leaked despite the Council's attempts at secrecy. Crowds gathered at the spaceport to catch a glimpse of the supposedly extinct species. Media channels went wild with speculation and conspiracy theories. Ambassador Yunji was a dignified woman in her 50s, with silver hair and the bearing of someone who had spent her life in negotiations. She brought with her Chancellor Doyun and a team of scientists carrying secure data cores with complete information about the Devourer threat. Hyunwoo met them at the landing pad. "Welcome to the capital, Ambassador. I should warn you, not everyone here is happy about your arrival." "We expected resistance," Yunji said calmly. "Fear of the unknown is a powerful force. We'll just have to help them understand." But understanding proved difficult. Over the next week, Yunji presented her evidence to the Council, demonstrated Remnant technology, and made her case for alliance. Some Council members were impressed. Others remained skeptical. And a dangerous faction led by Military Director Quan saw the Remnant as a threat to be neutralized. "These humans have technology we need," Quan argued in a closed council session that Jiwon managed to record. "Technology they developed over 2,000 years. We should be taking it, not negotiating for it. They're weak compared to us. A few dozen ships could subjugate their entire civilization." "You're talking about conquest," another voice protested. "I'm talking about survival," Quan shot back. "If this Devourer threat is real, we need every advantage. And if it's not real, We still benefit from human technology. Either way, we win. Jiwan brought the recording to Hyunwoo immediately. Sir, they're planning something. I've seen troop movements, ships being repositioned. I think they're going to try to seize the remnant delegation. Hyunwoo felt ice in his stomach. When? Tonight, I think. There's a state dinner scheduled. Perfect opportunity to isolate them. Hyunwoo contacted Eunji immediately. Ambassador, you're in danger. There's a faction within the military planning to capture you and use you as leverage against the remnant. Eunji's expression didn't change. We suspected as much. Chancellor Doyen and I have been preparing contingencies. Can you get us to our ship? I can try, but we'll need to move fast. That evening, as the state dinner began, Hyunwoo put his plan into motion. Using his security clearance, he accessed the diplomatic quarter and found the remnant delegation. But before they could escape, alarms blared. Military Director Kwan had made his move early. Soldiers poured into the diplomatic quarter, led by Kwan himself. Commander Hyunwoo, step away from the humans. You're interfering with Imperial security. This is illegal detention of diplomatic guests, Hyunwoo said, moving to block the doorway. The High Arbiter hasn't authorized this. The High Arbiter doesn't understand the stakes, Kwan said coldly. These humans have knowledge we need. They'll cooperate voluntarily or we'll extract it by other means. Eunji stepped forward calmly. If you do this, Military Director, you'll doom the Empire. The remnant won't share anything under duress, and when the Devourers come, you'll face them alone with inadequate preparations. That's a risk I'm willing to take, Kwan said, signaling his soldiers forward. Hyunwoo made his choice in that instant. He drew his sidearm and fired a warning shot into the ceiling. The ambassador is under my protection. Anyone who touches them goes through me first. The standoff lasted only seconds before Jiwan appeared with a squad of loyal security personnel. Commander Hyunwoo, High Arbiter Yuna has issued an emergency order. Military Director Kwan is to stand down immediately and present himself for investigation. Kwan's face went pale. What? Jiwan held up a datapad. The verification missions returned early. They found exactly what the remnant predicted. Energy signatures, movement patterns, everything. And 3 of our outer listening posts have gone dark in the past 6 hours. No distress calls, no debris, just silence. The High Arbiter believes the Devourers are already here. The color drained from Kwan's face. Around the Empire capital, alarms began to sound. Emergency broadcasts urged calm but confirmed the unthinkable. Contact had been lost with 3 colonies at the edge of Imperial space. Scout ships sent to investigate found nothing but empty worlds, stripped of all technology and power sources. High Arbiter Yuna appeared via hologram, her face grim. Ambassador Eunji, Chancellor Doyen, on behalf of the Valthran Empire, I apologize for this incident. You came in good faith and nearly suffered betrayal. That ends now. The Empire formally recognizes the Remnant as a sovereign nation and requests immediate military alliance against the Devourer threat. Eunji bowed slightly. The Remnant accepts, High Arbiter. We'll begin sharing our tactical data and defensive technology immediately, but we need to move fast. If your colonies are already falling, we have less time than we thought. Then we move now, Yuna said. Commander Hyunwoo, you're appointed as official liaison between the Empire and Remnant. Coordinate with Ambassador Eunji on combined defense preparations. What about the colonies under attack? Someone asked. Yuna's expression hardened. We evacuate who we can and establish a defensive line. The Remnant warned us this would happen. Now we fight back together, or we die separately. Hyunwoo looked at the Remnant delegation and saw grim determination on their faces. They had lived through this nightmare before. Now they would help the Empire face it, not because they owed the Empire anything, but because it was the right thing to do. That, Hyunwoo realized, was what made them truly human. Not their technology or their survival, but their willingness to help even those who had abandoned them.